Hello again. I'm Akiva the Believer, and I am reading to you from this marvelous book, Torah Journeys by Rabbi Shefa Gold. It is a book of each of the parshas that we read in our Torah. A parsha means like a chapter or a portion, and each week every Jew around the world is reading from the same chapter or the same parsha. And what Rabbi Gold has done is given us a 2 or 3 page insight into each of these parshas. So we have a way to understand it. If I was to sum up her basic philosophy, it is that these stories are not about those people back then. It is about us now. And that each of us can find our own stories in this larger story. So, for example, there's a Moses inside of us. There's a Pharaoh inside of us. And it is our lives to get free, and it is our lives to navigate in between these forces which are inside of us. That changes the way we've understood the Torah for thousands of years, because suddenly we have a different way to really resonate with these stories. They make sense to us in our lives. So let us continue. This week's parsha is Vaera, and I appeared. It is Exodus 6:2 through 9:35. Rabbi Gold begins, the story of Moses in Egypt continues as he confronts Pharaoh and tries to free the Israelites from slavery. God brings the plagues against Egypt. Pharaoh's heart is hardened again and again. The blessing. The blessing of Vaera comes to us as God's self-revelation. I am Yud-He-Vav-He. I am being itself. And yes, I am the same one that your ancestors perceived as El Shaddai, the very same one. All the names you have called me are aspects of the one. And now you are ready to receive a glimpse of the whole, that unnameable one. You will see me and know me through the process of liberation that you are about to experience. Freedom is the key to knowing me. Through this process, I will bring you to fulfillment, to a state where you can receive the divine inheritance, which is the knowledge of the divine spark at your core. I am Yud-He-Vav-He. I am being itself. In receiving the blessing of Vaera, I place my journey in the context of cosmic process. I know that every tragedy I suffer and every delight I enjoy moves me towards the fulfillment of the divine promise. As each face of God appears to me, I can see it in the greater context of the One. Each day in my prayers, I can remember with the Shema that all conception of God, Eloheinu, are aspects of Yud-He-Vav-He, which is being itself. One way that I will open myself to the view of the One is by witnessing the plagues, which represent the manifestation of divine power split off from its wholeness. In Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition, that wholeness is represented by the tree of life, which is made up of 10 Sefirot, divine aspects that mediate between the infinite and the finite realms. When one of these Sefirot is broken off from the whole of the tree, evil comes into the world. The 10 plagues correspond to the 10 Sefirot. Each plague is an aspect of the God force that is broken off from the tree. Its separation from the tree of life makes it a blessing in reverse. The energy is twisted, distorted, and loses its intelligence. Disconnected, this energy no longer serves the whole. In preparation for our freedom, which derives from the perception of the whole and our interconnectedness, we witness the destructive power of separation as each aspect of the God force breaks itself off and becomes distorted. Blood is a symbol of life, but in excess becomes its opposite. Zev Halevi describes the plagues as an overbalance of life that becomes deadly to itself. The blessing that comes from witnessing plagues, those tragic situations of obvious and deadly imbalance, is the awakening of the inner force of conscience that turns us toward wholeness and balance, and thus towards freedom. The spiritual challenge. When Moses tells the people what God has said, they cannot hear it. The inability to hear and respond to the promise of freedom, to the truth of oneness, and the self-revelation of God is attributed in the text to short spirit and hard slavery. At the center of our liturgy is the prayer that says, "Listen, Shema." Listening is the first step in the process of liberation. Vaera reveals to us two main obstacles to listening, and here our spiritual challenge is laid out. The first challenge to listening is shortness of spirit. This is sometimes translated as impatience. The process of liberation requires great patience and discipline to take the small necessary steps that will not necessarily relieve our immediate pain. Resolute patience is required to fully rest in the present moment as it is. This full acceptance of what is awakens the power of our presence and allows the process of transformation to unfold. Here is the paradox. One must patiently be in order to become. Hard slavery is the second challenge to the kind of listening that could lead us to freedom. We can become so tied to our work that our busyness is the driving force forming our identity. In this atmosphere, we can't stop long enough to listen. Listening is only possible when there is a degree of stillness and spaciousness. When life is experienced as a constant struggle, the barrage of stress prevents us from receiving the flow of grace that might move us out of bondage. When we witness the plagues, aspects of the God force that have been separated and distorted, we are initially moved to compassion. In the face of immediate suffering and need, our hearts are wrenched open. But when the immediate danger is past and we have recovered from the initial shock, our hearts tend to close again in complacency. We will get used to the world in its imbalance and develop strategies that will ensure our short-term survival. This is called the hardening of the heart. It is accompanied by narrowing the focus, deadening the senses, and denying any feelings that might threaten the status quo. The spiritual challenge of Vaera is to keep the heart open in the face of prolonged suffering and to let the seeds of freedom grow in the darkness. Once you identify the ways in which your heart has hardened, the challenge is to bring beauty and tenderness and compassion to the heart, to soften and penetrate the layers of defense that have been built up around it. Guidance for practice. What is accomplished through the following practice is patience, spaciousness, and presence. And in the process, you will encounter and get to know your impatience and busyness. Deep listening. Find a quiet place. When you hear a sound, Don't identify or interpret that sound. Instead, notice its pitch, volume, rhythm, and tone. Don't make any judgment about it. When you find yourself identifying, interpreting, or judging, just gently let go of those thoughts and listen even more deeply. Open yourself up to receive the sound fully. Don't reach out for the next sound. Wait for it to come in to you. Give equal attention to the outer sound and to the inner space that's receiving the sound. Listen for at least 10 minutes. That's where we'll leave it today. Thank you for tuning in. I want to ask you to subscribe and comment, and that will help. I also would ask you to go to Rabbi Shefa Gold. It's a website. You just type in Rabbi Shefa Gold, and there will be various drop-downs, and you can purchase this book, Torah Journeys. And if you do it that way, she gets all the money for which she is certainly due. So I thank you again. I wish you a beautiful week and an even more beautiful Shabbat. Thank you so much.